that we are about to go live. So I think, yeah, we are live actually. Right, that's
Oh,
awesome. Yeah,
hello, world.
let's talk about what we will be doing today. Uh, we will be doing. I hope. I mean, of course, this is subject to approval of my partner in crime, meaning you, Max. But I was
Mhm.
thinking that we could do two things. I took the liberty. Okay, I hijacked the code base and I spent some time in a sleepless night and figured out some stuff. And I would like because last time in the last stream we had some issues, right? We tried to override the object prototype, which apparently worked in JavaScript because we had green tests on it. We did it in a fairly TDD-ish way.
Mhm.
Well, I'm not TDD-ish. We did it in a TDD way, actually. Yeah, that was we shouldn't be
Yeah.
ashamed of ourselves. Uh, and But then when we tried to use that particular code snippet in our React application, we got into all sorts of trouble, and I just couldn't let it go. So I took the liberty of going through some stuff. Um,
Well, I
uh,
mean, come on. What we did is we ended on an exciting cliffhanger.
we did. And that cliffhanger will have its conclusion today
Oh, really?
yeah,
Oh, okay.
because I would like to go through that.
Yeah.
I fixed it, but I yeah, let me cover that when we get
Okay.
there. So I would like us to do a code review and potentially merge that outstanding pull request on the Art Nouveau project because it's long overdue in my opinion, and
Mhm.
I think you share that opinion as well. But then I would like to go through go over a blog post that popped up um,
Feed.
in my feed, in my email feed from dev.to, and
Hmm.
that uh, it was kind of intriguing because we are into training and education and so on,
Hmm.
and uh, and we're also into React. And there was this title that caught my attention: 11 advanced React interview questions you should absolutely know, and also with detailed answers. So I was thinking that this could be a good topic. Let's go over them one by one and see. I mean, we have the answers, right? Uh, we don't have to, play games with each other, but we
Yeah.
can be honest. Did I know this? Am I using this? Is this really an essential question? Um, and see if this blog post is something we can recommend to people.
Yeah. That
Does that
sounds
sound
great.
like a plan?
Yeah. I talked big in the last stream that I wanted you to commit that work in progress stage of the code base so that I would pull it down and fix it. I did not do so. So I'm extremely relieved to hear that you maybe have a solution and very curious as to what it is.
Right.
And arming yourself for technical interviews is always the good thing. And I think, with React, we get a lot of nice documentation, a lot of packages and dependencies that do a lot of things for us. And we are sometimes led away from looking under the hood.
Mm-hmm.
So uh, we should look under the hood. And it sounds maybe like these advanced interview questions is the kind of way to force that to happen.
Right. Awesome. Well,
Cool.
then I say let's get started.
Yeah.
I pushed out this link to our Slack channels, and if you are new to this or seeing this afterwards as a recording on YouTube, subscribe. We are live on Twitch under the name of Nomads of Code. Um, and why did we choose that name? Well, because it sounds cool. Uh, I think that's the main reason. But also, I'm in Gothenburg, Sweden. Um, uh, Max is in Stockholm, Sweden,
Yeah.
for now. But
For now, next week I will be in the heat wave between Bordeaux and Toulouse in the southwest of France.
fantastic,
So it'll be
fantastic.
very nomadic indeed.
Right.
So I'll have that cool library backdrop again.
Oh,
You
oh,
can be
oh.
impressed. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's well, yeah. I do envy you. But I live in a small paradise because I
Yeah,
live
you do.
in the
You do.
rural part of of Gothenburg. It's a little bit
Yeah.
outside of Gothenburg, actually.
Yeah, well, our viewers should maybe be aware that you own a very nice outdoor hot tub.
Yes, I do. I have a hot tub, and I will not bore
I'm only
you
saying
guys
this
with
because my wife is in
images
the
of
room.
that hot tub, but I do. But the big news, I mean, I know that I shared this with you off camera, but I just want to mention this, that the big news is that I will become a landowner, and uh, I can show you guys this, which is will
Look at
become
that.
my piece of paradise, a piece of land, 3 hectares of land where I will become a sheep farmer. That's my passion. I've been working toward this for a few years now,
Fantastic.
and
Yeah.
this is going to happen now. So yeah, this
Coding
is
and farming, they go hand in hand.
absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, let's see if we can get cracking on this one, right? So I'm jumping a little back and forward between different screens, our different views. I'm sorry, but let me just turn this off, the backdrop. We have an account. We have a pull request, right? And that pull request is a bit overdue. It's like 15 days, which is way too long for a PR. But on the other hand, in the context of open source, this is actually not very long. We've done fairly good git bonging on this one, which I appreciate. And as you can clearly see, Max, I fixed my GitHub problems, so those commits will be attributed to me now.
Very nice. Without jeopardizing your security, what was the step you had to take to?
Oh, it was very simple. It took 10 seconds, not even that. It was just updating
Okay.
the email on my user account on my local host.
Oh, okay. Very good.
Right.
Very good.
And I also made sure that I'm using the same name or username that I'm using on GitHub, so everything will be in sync.
Yeah.
Right. But okay, so what happened? Well, we added this this thing in the last. Where is that? Right. We added this piece of code in the last session where we were overriding the object prototype or adding an isArtist function to the object, right? Monkey patching it, basically.
Yeah.
Now, and it worked in unit tests. We had, in my opinion, a decent test coverage. We created a few objects and also an empty object, and we wrote those 3 small scenarios, and everything was very nice. We could chain this isArtist function on an object. However, that blew up in our face in when we implemented this into a React application. And the thing is that I've spent some time debugging this. This function was called multiple times by React all the time, by Chakra objects and React object, whatever, and this was being undefined, which was I kind of reached the border of my competence or my knowledge of JavaScript. So I actually took a very pragmatic approach to this, and if we think about the way we describe this this feature, right? If we just pull this up, we said that we should add current user isArtist. So I mean, like chaining a function or calling a function on the object, or creating a user class and isArtist and then passing in this current user. But I actually chose a third way of doing this, okay, rather than any of these two, which might be a bit out of scope, but I want to talk to you about that, right? So let me just pull up the code and show you what I did, and we're going to start with the module and go into the spec file. And so what I'm doing now is basically importing this is artist from user roles and then using it this way instead. So I'm
Right.
just saying,
Okay. Yeah.
I have this function and I just pass in this object, right?
Yeah.
And in terms of implementation, it looks like this. It's very similar to what we did before, but we're calling this has own property roles on the object that we're passing in instead of
Right. Okay.
expanding it, adding a function to the prototype. This is the lowest hanging fruit in my opinion, right?
Yeah.
I hope you can accept that.
Oh yeah, I totally do. I mean, it's easy to read, it's easy to understand, and if it works, that's fantastic.
Right.
Um,
Which means that, so if we do this, if we look at the way we are actually using it, so because the use case was that the user can create, where the user can access the project create interface if he or she is an artist. And I know we had a discussion about whether this is a good UX or not, and I totally agree it might not be the best of UXs, but that's the path we kind of started to embark on, and that's what we needed to fix. And anything else should be covered in new feature requests. Does that make sense,
yeah,
Max?
that makes sense to me.
All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. So let's split up the
Uh,
features as much as we can.
exactly. And right. So this is the relevant test for this, right? We are clicking on the create project link, and we are rerouted over because we are not logged in yet. So we are rerouted over to the create account view. We are filling that in, and here we're using a custom command, and you should see you can't do that as a developer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the problem was that project create is already a protected route, right? And we can see that here in our app.jsx, and there's not much logic that we can inject into the protection, or we could potentially, right? But it would be a bit and then this is, and the solution I will present is perhaps not the best one, but I sense that since this is already a protected route, meaning that there needs to be a current user, then adding even more logic, like, well, it's not only enough that it's a user, it also be a specific type of user, was a bit hard for me to swallow. So what I
Yeah.
did, again, being a pragmatic guy, I just did the lowest hanging fruit here, is that I added this logic into the project create, meaning that we are subscribing to the user
Mm-hmm.
from state, and if there is a user and the user is an artist, then
Mm-hmm.
we display the project interface, which is something that we need to create. We haven't created the interface yet. This is just a placeholder for this, right?
Yep.
And if not, I'm using this navigate to,
Mm-hmm.
which is something that we struggled with first time we touched it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I managed to kind of decipher this. So I'm passing in this state object, in this
Yep.
navigation,
Mm-hmm.
and we're navigating through the route path. And at this point, and this is a bit problematic, this could lead to some issues later. But at this point,
Mm-hmm.
the route path is the project's index page. You understand, right? The list
Yeah.
of projects, which perhaps is not the best route path, but that's what it is. And
Yeah.
so what I had to do here is, let's see, right? So yeah,
Is
I
it?
had to add this location,
Yeah.
and because the state that we are passing in with the navigate
Mm-hmm.
component is stored in location state, right?
Yeah.
And I also called it message, so therefore, right, therefore I use it this way. We are just checking if there is a location state message. I'm using safe operators because when we invoke this for the first time, right, as a landing view, like the first view, there is no such thing as location. Do you understand? So without those safe operators, this would error out for me. You understand?
Right. Yeah.
Now, this, but if there is one, we are dispatching this set message, which is the flash that we used already in other parts of the application, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And with this setup, everything is working, but this is a shit show in terms of code.
Yeah.
Because we and I have an idea how to fix this, but the question is whether we should or should not fix it. But there's way too much code here that is only relevant in one specific use case, and that is if a non-artist tries to access the create project user interface, which we also agree upon is not the best UX.
Yeah.
Right? So all this might be in vain. It does work. All the tests are passing for us the way they are written, but there are again some side effects. We end up with way too complex code, in my opinion, and B, we're not gaining that much, from all of this, in my opinion, because the use case is such a narrow one. It's a corner case almost, right?
Yeah.
So we could, in principle, create a higher what is it called? Higher non-something component. So we can like extract all of this functionality to another component and just use it in projects. So we can get rid of this. We can also work with a custom hook or what have you, and so on. But I mean, this is up for debate and up for discussion. But it's also a good example, in my opinion. So I learned something from this, or was reminded about something, and that is that, if you're not careful, your code will become bloated and overly complex because of the way you use a component in one way first initially, and then you add complexity, and all of a sudden you end up with way too much code, basically. Does all of that make sense?
Yeah, that rings extremely true. Yeah, I'm sure there is an even simpler way somehow, but probably, well, I would say it's for a future PR. I would also say that when I was working on this other project in parallel, the Morning Pages project, I had I sort of set up the continuous integration pretty much from the get-go, meaning that I got yelled at on GitHub, in the PR, whenever a single component was over 25 lines of code, which kind of forced my hand to be extremely bloat aware every single step of the way. So maybe next week or Monday, setting up a little continuous integration for this guy with Code Climate, doing some automated code quality testing might be a worthwhile thing to do. I don't know. I'm not saying that we should tackle this now at all. I think, a lowest hanging fruit. And also, you shouldn't be afraid of refactoring your code in future features, as long as that's why we have our test suite, to make sure that can be done safely.
Yeah. So regarding that 25 line threshold or setting, I was thinking about this yesterday evening too, because I mean, when I was working on this project JSX, for instance, right? I can cut down a little bit on this, but in terms of lines,
it doesn't count the imports.
Oh, it doesn't. Okay, but
it still only counts the inside of the actual function we're exporting. Projects.
But if we take a look at, so what could we do? We could extract this project's map, for instance. We can always work with extractions, but extraction is a slippery slope too, right? Because after a while it becomes very, very hard to maintain and unreadable, and it might become easier to understand the logic, perhaps, if you are
Mm.
reading through the code. But if you're supposed to add functionality or maintain the code, it can become a shit show too. That's one thing. And the second thing is, like, if we use um, a library like Chakra UI, for instance, right? I mean, take a look at the navigation component, right? Let's say, yeah, navigation JSX. So apart from the imports, we're not counting imports, right? But this is, and we already refactored this, right? Do you remember we stole the code from the website, and we extracted that to desktop nav and sub nav and mobile nav and so on, and still we are on, what is it, 80 lines of code inside of the navigation component. Do you understand? So
Yeah.
that's a lot. That's and then each subsequent one is also very, very big, because there are so many props being passed in and so on. So
Hmm.
this I mean, this navigation would never pass that quality check of 25, or was it 20? Was it 25? 25.
Yeah, it's 25. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a
But
tough
you
one.
can, I mean, you can turn it off for specific,
No, I know,
you
but
know.
but the question for me is more, why did they? I
Hmm.
mean, why is this 25 backed up by some arguments, or is it just an arbitrary number? Like, let's just do 25 because it
Well,
fits on the screen, or um,
your guess is as good as mine. If I had to speculate, I would say it probably has something to do with human beings' attention spans. But then,
could be.
if you receive a legacy project in your lap and there are 200 JSX files, do you have the attention span to read through everything?
Yeah,
Uh, Even if it's 25 lines each file, you're still going to be,
yeah, because that's the alternative, right? I mean,
yeah.
uh, any non-trivial application requires a lot of logic,
Hmm.
and logic means, you know, complex logic means a lot of LOCs, lines of code. Um,
Yeah.
Even if you extract, right? And but also, uh, rich user interfaces require a lot of styling and props to be passed in. Like, if you use, I mean, let's say we were not using Chakra UI. Let's say we do Tailwind, for instance. I mean,
Hmm.
about Tailwind. Tailwind is a shit show in itself, in terms of all the classes, and
Yeah.
you have to pass in. So that would also blow the. Then again, I guess you can use higher order components, and so on. Right, right. Uh, just a note on we're not going to go down that route today, but if we check the documentation of higher order components, uh,
Hmm.
which is, I can definitely see a use case for that in these projects, these added projects logic, you know, you know, depending on where you come from, if there is a message or state passed in, so you could use that. But first of all, this one is this documentation seems kind of outdated and old, um, because it still deals with class components,
So it does.
which is a bit weird. Uh, um right. So we can definitely look into this at some point, um, and see if this could be um, a way to go. But I am not 100% convinced about that yet. Just wanted to mention this.
Yeah.
Let's turn this off. Um, yeah. So this is what I came up with. Let's see if my tests are passing. I think that it could be a good thing to run them, uh,
Hmm.
and then we've been both heavily involved in this PR,
We have.
so we know what's going on. Not sure if we need to go through every line of code and so on, or if we can just merge it or whatever. It depends. I don't know. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, since we are streaming it, I think it doesn't really matter who among us merge it. But maybe since I opened it, you should be the one to click the button, and we can have that rule.
Yeah. I was thinking to say that since I pushed the latest.
Yeah, that's true too.
But,
All right, I'm happy to merge it.
But there seems to be an only somewhere, or am I missing?
Not when I run
nope,
it.
Nope. Okay,
No.
That was it. Right. So let me just see if I have any outstanding. If I have anything that is. No, I should be good. No, we're up to. We're good to go. Right. So
yeah, and I'm also doing this in parallel to you, and I'm doing it with the dev tools open. So as to see what kind of warnings we get, but
yeah, perhaps we should. I know we get some some chakra warnings, isn't it?
It's not as bad as you think.
You wanna share that?
Yeah, if you wanna switch over to my screen here. So I've just run the Cypress all. And these warnings are intentional, of course. These are sad paths. We want these to be read. But up here we have these 9 warnings, and those are the ones I'm interested in. And it's found 2 elements with non-unique IDs, and they are indeed these chakra checkbox inputs.
Yeah.
So I wonder here, it says field -:R7:.
Yeah.
This
I saw that yesterday.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's beyond our control.
It is, right?
But then again, just because it's beyond our control, it doesn't really justify that we turn the blind eye to it. It's not that what I'm saying, but it's a tricky one, What I would in a enterprise project, what I would do in this case is to ask the developer to create a refactoring chore, or just a chore to investigate these warnings, and stick my head into the sand. And I'm being transparent. That's exactly what I would do in a real life project. I would probably. What's the English word for the Swedish expression of härskarteknik?
Oh man, that's a really good one. I have to scratch my head.
I knew that one at some point, but anyway.
Or I think in corporate America, you'd say let's table that and circle back at a later point in time.
Which is exactly what I would do. I would just do that, create a chore, and I would place it very low in the icebox and just forget about it.
And if that landed on my lap, I guess the first thing I would do is to consult the Chakra UI documentation and see if there's any way to kind of inject different IDs and see if I could go at it that way, but unlikely. Anyway.
Yeah, I was considering that too, but that's a slippery slope. That's like 2 hours worth.
Because you could start breaking things quite easily. Yeah. So I would say, all right, this is good. This is great. I think we are ready to go.
I think so too. Let's go over to this thingy, and basically I'm basically gonna merge this now. I mean, there's no comments, no nothing. Right? I think we're good.
Yeah.
Let me just 29 files. It's way too big to go over right now and bore people with this. By the way, did you get to run the jest tests inside of your?
I have not.
Well, let's do that.
But I'm not gonna. You want to do that right now?
Yeah.
So
just so we have done it. You go to the third. Yeah, this one, right? No. No, the fourth from the top. Right. And then you click debug. Right. And debugger attached.
True.
Yeah, but you go to the terminal output. There
Yeah.
you go. Right.
All right. So we
Right. And
passed 3 out of 3.
yeah, just for the sake of it, go to the test file. Or yeah, you can go to the test file, which is
which
in modules.
lives in modules.
Right.
Yeah.
And click on line 17 on the number. Just place a red dot there.
Yeah.
There you go.
There we go.
Right. And run the test again. So back to the runner.
Yeah. Boom. And now debugger attached. It's working.
And there you go. And now you can go to the debug console in the terminal.
Yeah.
And now here you can check, for instance, what is it? Oh, if you just type artist, you should see that. Right.
Name, Thomas, email, array, roles.
Right.
So can I do or do I have to? No, look at that. Okay, very nice.
You can execute code in here. So right, so remove that and you see up on the very top of your interface, you have these controls. So you can continue to run, you can stop it or whatever. And so you can remove the red dot. Do not keep it there because it will hunt you. And go to the code of user roles.
Look at the
right,
code.
and then click on inside the if statement somewhere. Right.
Yeah.
There, and execute the test again.
Yep. Oh, this feels.
Right, there you go. Now you stop.
There we go. Here we are.
Right. So you can just continue to run that, and the third thing and the last thing you can do: remove the red dot and create a new line and type the word debugger, and just execute it just to prove a concept that you can do this as well, right? So,
yeah, I really should learn the keyboard shortcut for this. I will in a second. And what does the debugger look like? Like this. And I still have to go into the debug console, right, to look at things. But now I can just do object, I guess. Right. And there it is. Yeah. Okay. Very good.
No. So and the thing is that this is the only way you can debug these kind of tests. You cannot do that in the terminal. So I know that you are not a great fan of using
okay. Well, that's a strong argument. Yeah. Strong enough to live in VS Code for a while.
Yeah. And it's a bit hard to work with. It's tricky, as you say. Hotkeys are great for this, and so on.
Yeah. Let's see, what is this? Shift Command D on a Mac.
Yeah.
Well, that didn't seem to work. Okay.
Right.
That's just switching over to the screen. Okay. Okay. I'll figure it out. Yeah. But here we are.
Now you've done that at least. Good.
Yeah.
All right. Right. We have fairly good test coverage. We have one comment, right, but can potentially be extracted to another test file. We will look into that in a different PR. So we don't have to do this now, in my opinion.
Agreed.
So this is also a slippery slope, right? Because the longer the PR lives and the bigger it grows, the more sloppy you become in code reviews, and you let things slide, right? So, I always say keep things as simple as possible, small PRs, fast PRs, and the key to that is, of course, a good definition of a feature, a well-scoped user story. Do you agree?
I fully agree.
Right.
Yep.
Thanks. Because it's important.
Yeah, there's no way around it. That's life. Yeah.
So because at this point, when I kind of rush this through, I feel a little bit, dirty. I need to take a shower afterwards. Do you know what I mean? Like I get a sense that I am breaching my own standards, and I don't like that too much. We removed those comments. We have I also created, of course, new fixtures. We kind of let it slide in our last session. I had to create a response for an artist account and another one for the developer account, because in our tests we were using that differently. I was a bit puzzled yesterday when tests started to fail for me. I was like, why is this happening? And I was a bit tired. Oh yeah, of course I'm responding with the wrong stuff, right? So, right. This is pretty self-explanatory. We have these routes, of course. Use effect, use navigate, right? State, use locate, right? So here I'm distracting state, and I'm not doing that in this project create. You see, so that's a bit of no. Where is that? No, in this project, you see here, location. I could have distracted state. Do you understand? So I could have, yeah, but it doesn't matter. Let's just merge this, okay?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Got to keep moving.
Yeah. Where am I? No, conversation. Squash and merge. Squash and merge. Right. Goody. That's about it.
Yep.
That's about it. Awesome. Okay. And we will not start with anything new, right? But we will take this user can register, and we will move it over to done, right?
That's what we should do.
Where is it? Should I add it on top? Yeah, I guess, right?
I guess.
And so the next thing, the next logical thing will be that the artist can create a project, because we have this project create interface. Not done.
It's a little bare right now. Yeah, right. That makes sense to me.
So I will add that to, in progress.
Very good.
Right.
Now, the issues list in the actual repo will still have 4 open issues. So I guess we have to close something by hand. You may have been able to do it from here. Like if you open that, yeah. Can you say close issues somehow? Maybe not.
It's done. Size, choose priority. No.
Yeah, if you scroll down a little bit. There, close issue.
All right. Let's just
what happens? Yeah.
Let's see here. I reload this one. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's good. That's good functionality. We like.
So we should probably. Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, let's not get ahead of ourselves now. I just wanted to see the closing of the issue.
We're still learning this interface, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So that was that, right? Let's move on to the theoretical part of our thing, right? So here we are. We have this this blog post, and I will send a link to you, so you have it.
Oh, I have it open already.
Oh, you have it. Okay, good.
Yeah.
So they present this as the 11 advanced React interview question that you should absolutely know. So this is the thing. Like our job is not to criticize the guy too much, but enough to determine whether this is actually essential knowledge or if it's just perhaps not essential knowledge. I don't know.
There's some divisions in the comment section. Let's put it that way.
Right. I will actually just
but there always are.
Send out this link. So this is what we are working with. Right. Okay. All right. So the first one. What is the React virtual DOM? That's the deemed as an essential question in an interview. I think that's a good question, actually. I think it's a common question that people will get. And I was when I saw it, the thought that popped up in my head was, I wonder if my students would be able to answer that. at the end of the bootcamp. And what are your thoughts on the question itself? And also, let's take a look at the answer, perhaps.
We do in the bootcamp talk about the virtual DOM when we introduce React, but we do so in the theoretical part of the bootcamp, and the bootcamp is very hands-on and practical. So I think it is probable that the concept of the virtual DOM goes in one ear and out the other. I think that was very much what happened to me, to be fully transparent. I think there's a lecture where you mention that when React decides what to update and so forth, it does so by storing things in a virtual DOM, or rather rendering things in a virtual DOM. Why it does so, I'm not sure we touch upon, but I should be corrected if that's not the case.
Let's take a look at the answer presented here. Virtual DOM is a concept where a virtual representation of the real DOM is kept inside the memory and is synced with the actual DOM by a library such as React DOM. All right, which is a perfect answer, right? And then I think we are repeating the same answer. The virtual DOM is an object that represents the real DOM in the memory. But there's an interesting part here. Since the DOM updates are an integral part of any web app, but are the costliest operation in the world of frontend, the virtual DOM is utilized to check for parts of the app that need to be updated and update only those parts, those significantly boosting performance. I think that I do appreciate that that they emphasize that part, because it's really important. The problem here is that, before you can talk about the virtual document object model, you have to have a fairly deep understanding of what the document object model is. But I do assume, since this article is about React, we kind of, assume that
advanced React, right? It's not just
exactly.
Do you know the difference between a class and a functional component? It's
right.
Now we've cleared those hurdles, I assume, but we'll see.
So I think that the answer here is spot on, right? It's short and neat, and although if I would be, the one that is being asked this question, I would be very humble. And I've been working with React for a few years now, right? What I would say, or I would start my answer by saying, this is a good question. Thank you very much for asking all this yada yada stuff. And this is a situation, I would say this is one of those situations that resembles me driving a car or using a car. You understand? I do understand how the combustion engine works in general terms, but I wouldn't be able to tell you all the theory about the how engines work with all the I don't even know the English words for the cultivar and all this stuff,
cylinders and the pistons.
Because you see, I do understand the significance of the virtual DOM, and I understand the positive effects on performance. But if you ask me how it works, then I'm dead in the water. I wouldn't be able to answer this. Although the question is formulated, what is the React virtual DOM, not how it works, right? And it's really important to distinguish those two things from each other. I wouldn't be able to answer on how it works, only that the React DOM library takes care of that, and I'm happy with it. I'm a happy React user, not a React expert of the virtual DOM. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that's a great answer. That's a great answer, and I think this second paragraph is extremely strong and succinct, and I think, but I think that like the concept of performance, which maybe come back to haunt us later in this list, is a big question. That it's a huge question that merits probably its own list of 11 advanced interview questions. but so I would say it's good to leave it abstract for now, but it triggers a lot of like, client requests versus benchmarks versus what actually is it versus continuous, DevOps questions, like not specific to React and so forth. So I would shudder to have to explain that succinctly in an interview.
Overall, good question. Not sure if they are listed in any specific order of relevance or importance, but I think it's a good question. It's also a good enough answer without going into too many details. In an interview setting, you should keep things as short as possible. My addition to this is just to I love to come across as not a I know it all kind of guy. I understand the concept. I don't care really what's going on underneath the hood. That's enough. I think, but I like this. I like this. Right, let's move on to the second one. Why do we need to transpile React code? I like that they highlighted, not only highlighted, but really like emphasized the word transpile, right?
Yeah.
Because it's touching upon a concept that we as educators or coaches often kind of struggle with, and that is that there's so much lingo and so many expressions that we need to understand as developers, and our students are struggling with in the beginning, since we are very practically oriented and not theory oriented course.
Right.
But I mean, you've been at it for a year or something now. Let's just back up to Max from 2019. Did you know what transpile means back then?
I did, unfortunately, but I didn't use
okay, sorry,
Babel.
Wrong person to ask.
But okay, so in my pre-transpilation days, I think transpile is, if I was back in my comparative literature days, I would say it's a terrible word and it doesn't really mean anything. It's too abstract, and transform, most people understand. Compile, most people understand, but the neologism, I guess, of transpilation is actually, neologism is not the right word, because compound words, compiled words. No, thank you for looking this up and keeping me honest.
Translate compiler. Oh, okay. So transpile software.
All right. So it's very text specific.
Into the source code of another. Okay, I got it.
Yeah,
I got it.
So if I was to put back my more like editor hat days from activism and so forth, I would say you would never ever use jargon in a headline. That's tisk. But now I'm a developer, so I'm sort of like, yeah, of course, this is the word. It means what it means. And you have to learn it. So put it in the headline and put it in the code format so people know it's a technical word. Is a clever way to solve that problem.
Cool. All right.
But the issue of students learning transpilation and why we have to do it is a tricky one. That I think at the end of the course they understand. That it's sort of almost instinctive that if you're going to use a variable in your JSX HTML, you're going to use curlies, etc.
Yeah.
That I think it comes along strongly. I hope.
Right. Yeah. Good. So, but the question is good. The question is a question that would if you don't know what it is, then you would probably shit your pants just by being asked the question. Before we move on to the answer, thank you very much we have a new follower from
all right,
from on Twitch, Sophie Askesi. Well, thank you very much for the follow. I hope you enjoy the conversation. It's an important one in my opinion, but we're making progress. We're on the second question of 11 essential or advanced questions that everybody should know. Why do we need to transpile React code? The answer goes that React code is written in JSX, but no browser can execute JSX directly, as they are built to read only regular JavaScript. Thus, we require tools like Babel to transpile JSX to JavaScript so that the browser can execute it. Right. 2 paragraphs. Let's kind of, I don't know, dissect the first one. React code is written in JSX. Let's start with this. React code is written in JSX. Yeah. Yeah. That's a little bit of a stretch, isn't it? React uses JSX, right?
Yeah.
For the representation for the UI part, but a React component can contain much more than just the user interface. I mean, it can contain logic. The overall goal, or reason for a component to actually exist, is to render a bit of UI. So yes, in that way, JSX is an important part. But we also know that React doesn't have to use JSX. You can write React without JSX. So this first part of this is a little bit of a stretch for me. But on the other hand, this is completely right? Because no browser can execute anything but JavaScript, right? That's what I would say. So overall, this is a little bit of a stretch.
Yeah, but the takeaway, I mean, no matter what web framework you use, again, just being heavily theoretical here, no matter what framework you use, or single static site generator, that du jour, it's all gonna boil down to the holy trinity of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. There's, until new browsers come about, I mean, I guess you could talk about Webpack somehow, but and WebAssembly, but this is the reality, the realpolitik of web development.
Yeah. But so if we move on to the next paragraph, it says that we require to use tools like Babel to transpile JSX to JavaScript. That's correct. Although we transpile not only JSX but everything else that React comes with. But it's a matter. I guess it's just semantics. I think that
it's good.
Yeah, the answer is a browser. I mean, React is a front end library. It's supposed to be, the domain is a browser. The browsers only understand the holy trinity, as you pointed out, and we need to transpile this into that.
Yeah.
The question is good. The answer is good. It's not a great answer, but it's a good answer in my opinion. Should we grade him like on a scale from 0 to 10? No, we shouldn't do that.
No.
Right. Let's move on to the next one. What is the significance of keys in React? The concept of keys is something that we often stumble upon when we work with, especially when we iterate over a collection and create small pieces of UI. I can tell you this. I've struggled with explaining this to our students, perhaps not because I'm lazy. I always just glossed over it. Just do it. React needs it to be able to identify each object, but I never took the time to explain it to our students in detail. So mea culpa for that, guys. Would you be able to answer this question?
I probably couldn't answer the theoretical part. I would say that I've seen students and myself accept this as gospel, to keep with the imagery, but fairly quickly. And that, when you forget, when you iterate over something and you forget to add the key in, React compiles and then renders and gives you a nice warning in the terminal. And unfortunately or fortunately, that warning is written as what your eye takes away is that the key is missing. The key is missing. There's a list item inside an unordered list, ordered list, whatever. It doesn't have the key attribute, and we want that. And so immediately you go, oh yeah, of course. And you go back and you fix it, and the warning is gone, and you sort of leave it at that. So no, I would not be able to answer this question with beyond the practicalities, you know.
I can tell you this also. I've learned something by reading this blog post, because I never thought about or knew that it was a performance issue, right? Because apparently React does perform this iteration and creates those elements and renders them, and all is good, and they're kind enough not to, you know, just shut everything down, but they just output you know, a warning, a red warning in the console, right? But adding those keys, and that's what puzzled me. Like, so okay, so I can have the key and then the warning is gone, or I don't have it and I see a warning. But apparently, it's a performance issue. It's something that helps React to, as they say, identify which items has changed or you know, were added or what have you, right? So you can optimize the re-rendering of that particular component. I think this is a very good question, and it is an advanced question, and I like it.
Yeah, me too, and I learned something too.
Yeah, right. And there are some examples. Let's see. This would cause new DOM elements to be created every time to-dos change, but adding the key prop would result in dragging around the DOM elements inside the URL tag and only updating the necessary list items. Okay, so that is the performance part.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. And here comes another one that really ticked me off. What is the significance of refs in React? And to that, total transparency, I was like, there is no significance of refs in React. Never use it. Well, I've used it a few times. Don't give a shit.
Well, I mean, but because we when things get complicated enough, we introduce Redux generally. To handle application state.
But this could be right. So let's if you go over the answer, let's
yeah. So refs are variables that allow you to persist data between renders, just like state variables. But unlike state variables, updating refs does not cause the component to re-render. So refs are used to, but not restricted to, store reference to DOM elements.
Right.
I remember using refs when I had a particularly nasty input field, or a form rather, and the form inputs needed values. It was to edit articles or something of that like, and we were using MUI or Semantic React, I forget. And one way to pre-populate the kind of long text object was to use a reference so as to keep it an uncontrolled component. I mean, this is like a kush maybe, but there we use the use ref hook, which, you know, I mean, in the React documentation is one of the main ones after use state and use effect.
Yeah.
So that got rid of a bunch of warnings. But again, you know, I'm sort of giving you a practical example. I couldn't really pull this out of my memory and say, oh yeah, it's persist data between renders. Like, no. And I guess what I'm thinking now is like, what would be an example looking at this text here where this would come into play? It's like, do you want to preload something that's happening? Like, is the application state or just state, you know, are we storing a current user? Do they do something inside a component that we want to change the information about the current user, their preferences or whatever, but we don't want to indicate it on this page at all? Does this then allow us to have a more performant way of doing that? Which sounds great, but how does that play with Redux, for example?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
maybe we should experiment
Yeah, I was just about to say that. I think that in our, you know, side project, the Art Nouveau project, we could we could make a, you know, a decision that let's use refs at some point just for
yeah,
the sake of, which is like nonsense, right? Because you shouldn't just say, oh, I need to
no,
use this technology or I need to use something. But since this is a learning
yeah, and also
thing,
it's
yeah,
fun.
yeah. I can tell you this. If I would be given this question in an interview setting, my answer would be, I've got to be honest, I don't know, right? I mean,
Mhm.
the one that I just highlighted on my screen is something I
Mm.
can learn. I can, you know, just read through it a few times and remember it. And if somebody asks me, I could I could answer. But if they would say, could you elaborate on that? Could you give me a practical example? I would just say, no, I cannot, and I'm sorry about that. Because I do understand, that they are variables. You can persist data between renders, which is great because I, I, I assume that this is valuable. But as you said, you know, in your answer, or when you were
Yeah,
talking, I
non-answer.
can't really, yeah, in your non-answer, I can't really come up with a use case for this right now. Boom, which means it's indicative of me just not understanding what it does. So if you have a pen and a paper somewhere, Max, let's just jot down use refs, uh, so we know what the hell it's all about. Okay.
Yep.
Um, because what really sets me off here is that refs are usually, but not restricted to, used to for storing reference to DOM elements. I
Hmm.
think that that's how I've used them a few times without actually knowing what I'm doing. Which just, instead of get element by ID kind of thing. So
Yeah. I mean, it kind of it sort of it almost smells like pointers, you know.
yeah,
Um, if you've ever done any coding in C or C++,
yeah, yeah.
it's like
Memory point. Yeah,
it's it's uh
yeah.
it's nice and low level, which gets me excited. But like, yeah, we'll do some
Right.
happy experimenting with it.
So I would say high points on the question itself. It exposed a blind spot in my knowledge, and I would
Yeah,
say definitely.
but my balance spot sort of remains. So
Right.
anyway, okay.
Yeah. So that's mine, of course. But we hopefully we'll fix it. Here comes one that I just I don't know. This is a weird one in my opinion. What are the most common approaches for styling a React application? And this is subjective. I mean, come on. I if you I wouldn't be, if I was in a hiring position, like doing the hiring, I wouldn't ask a
Hmm.
question like that, because it kind of implies that there is an industry standard or set of standards, and
Hmm.
this is, especially in JavaScript world, there are a myriad of things, right?
Yeah,
Uh, so I am not, I do not appreciate the way the question is formulated. Any thoughts on
yeah.
that?
I have not discovered an industry standard yet.
Yeah. But anyway, they
um,
talk about CSS classes. They talk about inline CSS.
sure.
Uh, they talk about preprocessors, CSS in JS modules, style components, emotion style JS. Right. CSS in JS modules. Right. So, okay, without going through the entire answer,
Mhm.
um, since we're talking about most common approaches, I assume that the author lists those ways of styling,
Mhm.
and implying that there are even more than that, right? Uh,
Yeah.
yeah. Uh, so I am not, yeah, I'm not super impressed by either the question nor the answer. Having said that, styling is a shit show, in my opinion, right? And I've been in projects where one developer to use inline or just
No, in
regular
the same
CSS, and
project.
another one is just, oh, I think we should do style components. And after a while, you either have a CSS framework, then you have a massive index.js, index CSS file that you read it, you import in the on the highest component, like in index or in app.js,
Yeah.
and then somebody else comes in and says, "Oh, SAS is great. Let's do that," and
Yeah.
creating a mess. But
Yeah.
so
Choose something and try to stick to it, right?
right, I would. So if I would be given this question, I would say, like, you can do regular CSS inline, or you can use some of the some style, some functionality. If they would ask me to elaborate on this, then I would choose. I would basically counter with a question on my own, which what do you guys use here,
Yeah.
and let's see if I know about it. You understand?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
in an interview setting, it's a slippery slope because of the question is extremely broad, and it can call for a long explanation, and also pros and cons discussions, and that would consume too much time, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. It borders on kind of. I would almost rather ask, like, if the interviewee has a preference for tackling the styling issue. Keep the styling issue broad, but have them talk about their experiences and what they like and don't like about a particular solution, maybe that they're very familiar with, rather than to ask them to give this kind of lecture style answer.
Yeah. So
That's
not very
what I would
fond
go
of the
for.
question or know the answer, but I think that the monkey is fantastically cute.
Yeah, it's impressive.
Yeah.
Poor monkey.
Yeah.
Let's hope it's a face filter.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. What are some of the performance optimization strategies for React?
Uh-oh.
Yeah. So we're borderline, yeah.
But this is why I mentioned performance earlier. It's like this is a tough topic, but talking about use memo, I think everyone should know how to do, but I wouldn't be very good at giving an explanation for how it works.
Yeah. So, yeah, lazy loading should be on top. Just lazy loading is the most common one. Load only what you are supposed to show on the screen for that particular user at the very moment, right? So you could also utilize techniques like if they use the scrolls, then you load more, and all of that stuff, right? So I would definitely use lazy loading. I think that's and that comes, there's a fairly generic answer because it relates to React, but also to many other to vanilla JavaScript and any other frameworks, but also I remember we used lazy loading back in the days when we did full stack Rails apps and so on, right? So lazy loading is great. This use memo thing and use callback, right? I would say, without prolonging the discussion, we can use memo at some point in our project, but this explanation is a React hook that is used for caching CPU expensive functions.
If you have a CPU expensive function, it almost sounds like you have a web game or something, and would you use React for that? I'm not so sure.
No. Again, perhaps we're just ignorant, perhaps we just don't know. Could be, but I do not feel comfortable with this. I would never use this answer personally, and to be honest, I think the question itself, what are some performance optimization strategies for React, it feels a little too techie for me, because that I'm a developer that likes to create stuff. I'm not a very hacky techie kind of guy, so I would just go, I don't know, probably.
I mean, it's a corner case, right? And that's okay to say, I hope.
Right.
But maybe a use memo and use callback deep dive is in order. We'll see. We'll see.
The next one is more interesting. What is prop drilling and how to avoid it?
What is prop drilling?
uh, you know what prop drilling is. Perhaps we just didn't use this expression. It's the mess that you create in an application that does not use application state. You have to pass in a lot of properties. Like if you have a current user, you have or functions, right? If you have a username in the nav bar, and you have something else happening in the footer, and he logs in another component, and then all of a sudden you have to send properties up and down because other components are dependent on it, which means that usually you end up in a massive app.jsx, the component that is on the highest level.
Super parent.
Yeah.
I find on this I found that when I was doing the bootcamp and when we started passing props down, we just started using use state for component state, and I think we had something like we had a list of employees, and you had to click on an employee, and it would open up a pop-up, a modal, and you could do you could read some information about the employee, and of course not of course, but we chose to use props to pass down that information. So as not to necessitate another API call when you open up the modal.
Yep.
And for some reason, I really can't remember. All I can remember is that we needed to be able to, or we decided we wanted to be able to change something in state inside the modal, and so we had to pass down the set whatever variable it was, and it feeling really neat when we got it working, and understanding that you can pass down not just the variable but the actual or the state, but actually the set state setter function as well, and that once Redux was introduced, that knowledge faded a little bit in my cohort. I hope no one's watching that will call me out on this. It faded for me as well until much later in the bootcamp. But that I developed kind of a feeling that we shouldn't knee-jerk always go for Redux and then to solve all our problems, because it can prevent us or preclude us from really cementing the knowledge of passing functions as properties as well. So I like a little bit of prop drilling, not a lot, but just
absolutely. I would say that passing. I mean, we do it all the time. I mean, if you think about this current project that we work in, you pass in properties, all the well, not here, but where can you do it? Well, I can't really find that now, but no, definitely passing props is important. The prop drilling is more of a situation where you have like one parent component, a child component that in turn has another child component, and you have to pass in a property through intermediaries. So that's what prop drilling is, and that is what they ask about. And if you look at the answer, prop drilling can be avoided by using the context API, which is built into React, or Redux or Flux or whatever.
State management library,
Let's
well,
take
I learned the phrase. I had not heard the phrase before. I had done it accidentally myself in the early days. So I've been guilty, but now I have a word
and
for
it's,
a phrase.
And it's inevitable. We do that, and with the way I don't know how I presented it to your cohort, but the way I present this is that what if you need this data down below, and then you alter this data on a child component, but the parent or grandparent needs it, then you need to pass in shitloads of stuff, and Redux fixes that in a breeze, right? It's a beautiful solution.
It is true.
Let's just see the answer that Mr. Bose is presenting. Sometimes while developing React apps, there's a need to pass data from a component that is higher in the hierarchy to a component that is deeply nested. Absolutely. To pass data between such components, we pass properties from a source component and keep passing the prop to the next component in the hierarchy until we reach the deeply nested component. That is perfectly phrased, in my opinion. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
The disadvantage of using prop, well, okay, I'm not really fond of that he reuses this expression, because it's perhaps not of doing it this way, I would say, in this case. Do you understand?
Mm-hmm.
Is that the component that should otherwise be not aware of the data have access to the data? Moreover, the code becomes harder to maintain. Okay, definitely this, the last part of the sentence.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I would list the
this.
first disadvantage. I think he phrased it a little weirdly there.
The what throws me here is that the GIF is of a guy drilling a hole. Instead, it should be like an oil rig that drills really deep. That would be a better image for me to understand this concept.
Yeah, yeah. And also, the sweater is so 80s, you know. So yeah,
it's coming back.
I know.
Oh, it's already come back and gone.
Nice,
blink of an eye.
But okay, so I think that right. Prop drilling, I think that Dan Abramov called it a prop hell or something. There is a talk about the context API by Dan Abramov. I think it's a good question, but this question could be focusing more on state management overall, you know. But yeah, let's move on. Let's go to the next one, which is something that
we love the next one.
Yeah. What is the strict mode component and why should you use it? All right. Yeah. Oh God.
I mean, we've had some run-ins with this in our development of Art Nouveau.
Yeah.
But anyway, so should I look at the answer?
Sure.
Okay, so strict mode component included with React to provide additional visibility of potential issues in components. Suppose the application is running in development mode. In that case, any issues are logged to the development console, but these warnings are not shown if the application is running in production mode. Right. So developers use strict mode to find problems such as deprecated lifecycle methods and legacy patterns to ensure all React components follow current best practices. Strict mode can be applied at any level of an application component hierarchy, which allows it to be adopted incrementally within a code base. So first of all, didn't know that. We always use it on inside of the index.js, you know, the sort of the entry file. And so that's interesting. One thing that it doesn't mention here that you and I came across just last week or 2 weeks ago is that strict mode renders components twice. Which when you're doing some test-driven development and you're looking at API calls, you will all of a sudden see a very confusing, doubling everything. So, that's a nice little. Maybe it's too detailed, but I would have mentioned that possibly. And it becomes important for us because we deploy to Netlify amongst other places, and Netlify, if you have warnings, I guess in production mode, but it won't publish your build. Will not
unless you hack it. Unless you hack it.
Yeah, I've tried to avoid it as much as possible, but I know the possibility is there. It's temptation.
Full transparency, I hack it all the time.
I know you do.
It's one of my basic setups. It's just you just add this to CI equals and then nothing, and then you can just you can push everything after that. No, I understand. Look, there's another thing here that, in my opinion, is missing, but perhaps I'm ignorant here. There's this strict mode in JavaScript, right? I think that strict mode in Java, this answer should relate or connect the strict mode component to strict mode, or use strict in JavaScript as well, if there is a connection. I think there is, but I don't know enough about it. I think that me bringing this up to our attention is well timed because we struggled. we stumbled upon this. We didn't struggle, in my opinion, but we stumbled upon strict mode and some implications. The double rendering, for instance, is an important one. So I learned a few things, and by us, stumbling upon it, but also by reading this this Q&A here. So I like it. It's a good question.
It is a good question.
Yeah, and it's advanced. So
yeah,
it
and like if you're using Create React App, it on the initial render, strict mode is turned on. So if you don't know, like if you don't know what strict mode is, then you should also claim that you never use Create React App.
Yeah.
Or the interviewer will be very confused by your knowledge base.
At least not in the recent times, because it's a fairly new addition. It's been around for a year or something. Before that, the Create React App was.
Well, I mean, come on, more than a year. That's ancient history.
That's it. Here comes the next one.
Oof.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm not going to get this job, I'm afraid.
What are synthetic events? I think it's easier. I think that this is not as advanced as we think it is
Okay.
But synthetic events are native events of a browser, right? Like the native HTML thing. Like a link is supposed to link somewhere, a form is supposed to re-render, and so on.
Yeah.
So
right, okay.
this is the event that we are preventing.
Got you.
That's why we use prevent default.
Yeah.
But I am still not 100%. Let's look at the answer. Synthetic events combine the response of different browsers' native events into one, into API interface, ensuring that the events are consistent across different browsers. The application is consistent regardless of the browser it's running in. Right. Okay. Yeah.
I mean, but that is what you just said. Like.
Yeah.
That they've bundled them under something called synthetic events. I mean, I don't know if I completely understand why they call them synthetic events and exactly what it constitutes, which events we're talking about here. I mean, the example is a click, as an on-click event. I may have wanted, if I was asking this question, I may have wanted a slightly longer list than just handle click.
Yeah.
Because, well, I mean, look, even if you are learning React and you're not looking up synthetic events, when you are building any kind of user interface or application, you're gonna come across on submit, on click, and so forth. These standard HTML events, DOM events. So you will learn about them. You will be able to talk about them to some extent. What are they saying in the docs there?
Yeah, so the React doc says that this reference guide documents the synthetic event wrapper that forms part of React event system. Okay. See the handling to learn more. Your event handlers will be passed Yes. Okay. All right. Okay. So here's the deal. The synthetic event, I'm jumping a little back and forth, is this. This is the event itself, right? The thing that is happening when you click on this one.
Yeah.
And so this is a little bit misleading, because so E is the synthetic event.
I know, when I read E
default is what you're, in this case, what you do to the event. You're preventing it from its native behavior, right?
Yeah.
So, but ensuring that events are consistent across different browsers. So I would have to research this more, and we don't have time for that right now. But we can definitely, because there are so many. I mean, JavaScript is event driven, of course, and the things that are happening in the browser, and mainly. And this is something that we need to address in our education, is that everything that the user does is an event, whether he scrolls
or moves the mouse,
looking at things, right? But if he scrolls, clicks, whatever, right? Which is basically what he can do. What can a user do? He can scroll.
Well, there was a wonderful website by this Dutch privacy activist a few years ago, and I can't remember the name. I haven't found it, and it's very annoying. But it basically is a website that loads and you hear him narrating what you're doing. And say, oh, very interesting. The user has now been inactive for 2 minutes. Oh, very interesting. And it gets creepier and creepier.
Because he can hover over certain. He can use his trackpad or mouse.
And you can have certain. I mean, they can also. These are not events, but on before load, your browser has a bunch of data that the website or server that the website lives on reads in, and we can can do things and so forth.
But here's another indicator that what this could do. So this could do for us. So for instance, in React, you can have on mouse leave, for instance, event, and the native event name is mouse out. That is the JavaScript name of the event, right? So if you get hold of the event, which you do here, right, because it's being passed into the handle. Also, it doesn't have to be passed in always. It's automatically there in React, so you don't have to allow this to take an event, or you do. I don't know. It's always been
nice to be. Confusion. I like to write it down, right?
But if you want to know the name of the native event that is happening in JavaScript, you can do that, and this could be really useful when you use some external libraries, or you want to react to that event and so on, right? But all right, we are here to review those questions. This is a advanced question. Not sure it's very relevant, but I guess it is. Perhaps I'm again just ignorant. I am not 100% happy with the answer provided in the post.
I would almost guess that a question like this is maybe intended to measure an interviewee's knowledge of like HTML, basically. Because you can get very far in React without really fully grasping, event prevent default or and so forth. I would say it almost measures curiosity in a way, or it could, if asked a certain way.
It can also be used as a hashcard technique to put a person in his spot. I need to translate that. I need to that. There's a hashcard.
A method of remaining in power.
Translation. Ruler technique. That's not it. Master suppression techniques. That's the one I used before. It comes back.
Okay. Yeah.
Master suppression. Yeah. Anyway, we'll see about that. All right, let's move on. Why is it not advisable to update state directly but use the set state call? This is not an advanced React question. This is a basic React question.
Yeah.
And also, we are not longer using this set state call because we're using functional components. This is a a class component thing, but he does give an example of a class component.
Right.
So he used this. So he says set count. So I think that this is what he means by it, right? The set. I don't know. The setter of state should be used instead of modifying count directly, because so the answer is, of course, because the triggers are re-render. That's what React does. That's very core, a core functionality of React. That's why you shouldn't modify it directly. And also, I think, but I'm not sure about this, that in modern React actually issues a warning if you try to do that. If you want to set count directly, in this case, but I'm not sure about this. Perhaps
I'm not sure either, but I would not be surprised.
Yeah. So I'm not very fond of this question. It's not advanced. It's basic, and it's formulated in the wrong way. That's my take. Am I being too tough now?
No, I think that's fair. That's fair.
Right. Good. Let's move on.
Yeah. I'm interested in this one.
That's an advanced question because it's apparently so advanced because I have no fucking clue what portal.
You didn't play Portal? Come on. Right,
Well,
so
is it
let's
a
just
game?
go straight to the answer then, which is that Portal is a recommended way to render children into a DOM node that exists outside the DOM hierarchy of the parent component. Okay.
Oh,
Okay. So Portal. Oh, I see. Well, you know what? This is very similar to how we did our protected routes.
is it?
Because our protected routes is passing in, we're kind of skipping between different DOM hierarchies.
Oh,
No, maybe not. I don't know.
see, no, because we live inside of the uproot, right? And here you in your,
Right.
you know, you create a new, you get to the HTML template, the base, what I sometimes call an entry point. Port researchers writing down your goals. Okay, so
No,
right,
that's something else.
right.
But there is a section called portals in the React documentation.
You have it up?
Yeah, I have it up. You can switch to my screen. So in the docs, it says portals provide a first-class way to render children into a DOM node that exists outside the DOM hierarchy of the parent component.
Oh, okay, which is an exact copy of what the guy wrote in his post. Okay.
Yeah, so, okay. But this is what I'm curious about. The first argument, child's any renderable child, React child session elements to friends, setting a container as a DOM element, and then usage, right? Here we go. Normally, return an element from a component's render method. It's mounted to the DOM as a child with nearest parent node. Yes, that makes sense. However, sometimes it's useful to insert a child into a different location in the DOM. Okay. Can we have some examples?
Exact.
Event bubbling. Event bubbling. Well, I see a modal, so maybe that's it. In this one, we have two containers that are siblings in the DOM, one called.
Okay, so
this is written in class components.
There's a blog post from LogRocket.
Yeah, when is it dated?
This one is from 2019.
Okay.
So this guy apparently didn't have anything to do the day before Christmas, December 23rd, 2019. Right, so perhaps it's a bit outdated, but so this is an example. But because I did a search on Google React portals by examples,
yeah. Well, what does he use as an example? Even if it's outdated, it'll be interesting to illustrate.
In this article, we're going to take a look at real-world application of React portals and explain how it can be helpful solving the overflow hidden problem on a tooltip example. Wow, that's a broad use case. Oh shit, I feel a little bitchy. I don't know. Perhaps it's my blood sugar levels or whatever.
All right, yeah, it's lunchtime.
But
we're almost there, so let's power through. Wait, so a tooltip? Sure.
Okay. I got it. So there is a component that has a width and height, and if he uses a tooltip, but no, come on. He just has.
So his component is like strictly styled to some dimensions.
Yeah.
And they end up cropping down his tooltip. Like, really?
I don't know. I don't think. No. I'm not gonna dive into this. It doesn't feel like a great example. See, I don't ever use tooltips. Or do we? Are we using tooltips?
No, but I have used tooltips. Yes, I have used tooltips, but I use them as they're built into like various styling libraries.
Yeah.
And
this example doesn't
kind of get it for free.
Yeah, and so basically this example doesn't get my juices flowing.
No.
React Port is code sandbox, so we could read through some code, I guess. Oh no, okay. React modeling with rendering a model with React Portal. Okay, let's have a look at that. if it works. Code sandboxes can sometimes be a bit. So my model portal from React portal. What
This
is
is
a React
functional.
portal? I don't know. Open model, my model text. Right. Doesn't make me more clever. And also, React portal is a library apparently.
Okay.
Nah, not impressed. I'm sorry.
No.
Use understanding. And oh, here it is. Okay, understanding React portals and its use cases from
Okay.
2020. Okay.
Okay.
React portal is a first-class way to render first. What is a? Okay, what?
That's from the documentation. I don't know.
Yeah. The portal mode use is when the child component is to visually break out from the parent container, as shown below. Okay. Visually break out. Create portal. So, but what is it? Is it? Are we talking about Z index? You know, like in regular HTML and CSS, you could place things like you know, if you ever used Photoshop, you use layers, right?
Yeah, I mean,
You,
look, that's in the React documentation. There's little parrots as a typical use case for portals is when a parent component has an overflow hidden or Z-index style, but you need the child to visually break out of the
okay.
kids container.
Oh, that makes
So
sense.
yeah.
Yeah.
So the
All right.
examples are dialogues, hover cards, and tooltips.
Okay.
But okay, so then it's actually not a very complicated use case,
No.
even if it's a bit specific.
Yeah.
All
And I
right, so
also don't understand why it's called a portal.
Because it portals out of the overflow hidden or Z
Yeah.
index. I don't know.
Yeah. And also this
Yeah,
example here with grabbing
yeah, that's weird.
yeah, that's
But in their defense, that's also no, that is just weird. That is
yeah.
just weird.
And I also don't understand the GIF.
Well, the GIF is from a very excellent first-person puzzle game called Portal.
Ah, so that's why you
But
asked me if I never played Portal.
you should immediately download Portal 1 and 2 on Steam, and you should play it with your kid. I mean, they're just fantastic games.
Well,
Very, very clever 3D puzzles and good writing, really funny, and no gore. I mean, it's just like clever game design. Really, really great.
Well, that's going to be
And
my
they're
mission.
so old now that they will run on any machine, and they're super cheap.
That's going to be my mission with Thaddeus then, of course.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. That's super seal of approval from over here in Stockholm. However, I will say this. I mean, maybe not the answer that was in this list, but if I get this question in an interview, I will know what to say.
Yeah.
After doing a little bit of diving. So, that's at least it tickled our curiosity enough to pick up a thing that probably we will not use. But if we ever come up against an issue of hidden overflow and Z indexing, we can sort out a first class way to solve it.
Yeah.
Don't know why they say first class, but anyway, that's fine.
Anyway, and overall, let's wrap this up, right? So there was a lot of things to unpack in this blog post. I think that apart from having an extremely hard name to pronounce, Tapa Georgi, how do you pronounce the name of the author? Do you...
I don't know. I can't see it on the chat. It's too small on my screen.
Oh,
it'll be our homework.
Tapa. Okay. Anyway, so here's the deal. I think that post that list 11 things you need to or you must see sites in Rome. It's a little bit of a clickbait. It's like this is one thing. The second thing is that the quality of the questions was overall good. Some of them were not that advanced in my opinion, and the quality of the answers was the same. But I would give this post high rates in content, but I will also I would issue a warning to beginner developers, because if you read this and you don't understand shit, you get too stressed. You know, some of these answers are out to get you. That's, you know, that's my takeaway.
Yeah.
But overall, a good post. That's my takeaway on this, and my mark on this post. What are your thoughts?
Well, I made the mistake of scrolling down to the comment section, and now I'm sort of
And
good
now
Lord.
you okay? Let's see. Oh.
The thing is that a lot of people have a lot of opinions on the internet, and you know, take everything with a grain of salt. And I think what Thomas said, like, you come across something that is too hard to grasp, you know, it's never a reason to be discouraged. It's just a reason to feed your persistence and keep going. But I think the comments are generally great, you know, which is nice. The one that I kind of zeroed in on is the separation between the virtual DOM and React that does the actual updating of state. Yeah,
it's a good post. Let's give
it's a great post. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. I didn't read through the comments.
No, don't.
No?
Never read through.
Are they shitting on the guy or what?
No, they're not. They're mostly good.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
I think he deserves definitely high marks for taking the effort. I think that not all the questions would make my top 11 if I would go. Also, 11 is a very arbitrary number. But yeah, I mean, it's a great. And all in all, I just want to say that the dev.to community is great. You know, if you don't subscribe to these blog posts, you should definitely do it. Apparently, there's over 876,000 amazing developers contribute to this. So this is a great.
It's a great excellent resource.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think this was a good overview. I like the concept of reading through this and having this kind of discussions.
Yeah, me too.
This was the first blog post we actually covered, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. And you know, gave us a bunch of ideas, which is great.
Yeah. We can actually, you can do it if you want. You know, Clock, when we start to talk about this blog post, and perhaps link it as a comment. Perhaps people can shit on us a little bit. Yeah.
That's what the internet is for. No, I'm kidding. That's not what the internet is
but
for.
it is
for pictures of cats. We all know this.
Yeah. And again, but the animated gifs were cute at times. But
usually you hate pretty strongly on anything animated on a page, so I'm amazed.
I'm being a bit ironic, you know, and especially this poor monkey that has been. I mean, monkeys are supposed to live in the wilderness, and be free, and not styled as a you know, sex worker from Munich.
I was going to say German folk singer, but sex worker from Munich works too.
Isn't that the same? Am I being racist against Germans now? Oh shit! All right, so you know what? I'm going to stop talking before I make a total fool of myself. I think that the post was good. The stream was good. It's time for lunch. I'm very glad that we merged this PR when we got it out.
Ditto. Don't forget to pull down the latest development branch on your local machine, local host.
Absolutely. And I will introduce Tadeus to Portal.
Enjoy it. Oh, I'm so jealous. I wish I could play them for the first time. It's so good.
I will leave a review next time we see each other.
Yeah, great.
All right. Be cool, my friend. Thank you very much for following. There's links to subscribe and the bell.
Yeah, all that jazz.
Yeah. Yep. Be cool. We'll be back.